Hey everyone, we are here today for the free class from Yoga for Riders. If you know me, I'm Callie. Heidi, you've met through the free classes. She's there in the back, going to lead the class. And then we have Carrie, Carrie has the incredible herd of horses that we use when we do retreats here. In a few days, we have a group that is going to be coming to Costa Rica to do riding retreats, actually 3 groups. And that's why I'm here and have the opportunity to share this class live with you. And then we also have Caroline. And Caroline is one of Heidi's students, and it has agreed to be one of your demos for the class today. So in this class, Heidi is going to go through some of the top poses for riders, and you're going to get to see as she makes some adjustments with the 2 students that are in the class today. So if you're tuning in, just leave a comment if you can hear us and see us okay. Leave a comment where you're tuning in from. There'll be a little time for questions at the end if you do have questions. And Heidi, go ahead and take it away.
All right. Welcome, everyone. And I just want to first off say I've been loving hearing all the feedback from you guys and the questions. I invite more questions, especially for modifications. And so I just wanted to say as we start out, we're going to be starting sitting. And I know a couple of you mentioned that it's uncomfortable to sit on your knees or cross-legged. So I just want to invite you too. You can always sit in a chair, anywhere where you can really feel your sit bones weighted down. And along those lines, I really just want to point out that yoga, what we're going to be focusing on here in this physical practice, is exploring and continuum of movement. So every body is different. And so that means that there's an infinite number of ways that we can modify poses for injuries, for just tightness, for anything under the sun. So that's why I like the questions. I'm happy to get back to you individually. I don't always have time to kind of go over every modification, but I'll do my best. Okay, so having said that, we're going to come and into a seated position. You guys can face me. And I also want to point out these 2 are both really good riders and have horses. So I'll try to also in this class talk more about how each pose relates to riding. Although, as you might have noticed, I talk a lot during class to kind of keep you focused on what's going on in your body, your mind. So I don't always kind of hit all those points. Callie will talk more about how we've kind of included that in the course with some written materials that you'll get in the full course. So this is a foam block for yoga. If you have one, great. If not, no worries. You can use any sort of book or pillow, and you might want to take it between your ankles and then squeeze it between your ankles and sit back on your knees. Now, I know this is asking a lot of knees, so if you have knee issues, this doesn't work, that's totally fine. You can sit cross-legged like we've done before, or again in that chair. So if you sit on your knees and this is too much, you can also take a second block and stack it and get a little higher. And the only other prop you'll need today is potentially a blanket. These 2 don't need it, but I just wanted to show you how to modify a lunge. I had a couple of questions about knee stuff, so we'll just talk about that a little. So sit up tall, find your sit bones on your block or chair, close your eyes. Excuse me. And take a moment to just settle in. Sometimes the hardest part is just carving out the space to be on your mat. Same with riding. Sometimes it's just finding the time. So give yourself a moment and just settle down, settle in. And then just today, we're going to start with a little exploration of our pelvis. And if you want to open your eyes and look, that's totally fine. We'll come back to our breath in a second, but I just want you to set up here. So you might take your hands to your hips, and that's kind of lower in the crease where you are, not high up where your hip points are, but down low. And I want you just to roll into the backs of your sit bones so it feels like you're tucking your pelvis. Yeah. And then roll onto the tops, and then roll forward so you're on the front of the sit bones. So you'll notice here you have a bit of an arch in the back, and then do it again. Come up to the top, roll onto the back of your sit bones, really overdo it. So you feel that tucked pelvis. And then close your eyes, do it a couple more times. And I want you to think about what's more comfortable for you. What's your happy place? So if you bring this idea into the saddle, which I think Callie had a video of as we were doing this in an earlier class, you might find you're going to make that movement smaller and smaller until you find yourself really balanced on the tops of your sit bones. But it's interesting to note which one was the more comfortable place. That's probably where you're sitting in the saddle as well. And then once you find that place, just bring your palms down under your thighs, relax your shoulders down. And then now I want you to keep your pelvis the same and just lean a little bit back, the upper body back, and then lean a little bit forward. And then just notice, especially when we're feeling sort of that anticipation of what's to come, sometimes we lean forward a little bit. Again, slow down that movement until you feel really stacked, shoulders over your hips. And take a moment, just notice what that feels like. And one last little adjustment I want to make here, just to draw the attention to the upper body, is draw your shoulder heads, which is the tops of your shoulders, back behind you. So you open across the front of the chest, and then feel the shoulder blades slide down your back. And sometimes as we do that, we kind of get the lift across the chest that we want, but we get a little stiff or tense. So try to relax your front ribs down. Notice if anything changed in that low back. Find your balance there. And then exhale all your breath out. And take a long inhale in through your nose. And then a long exhale out. Through your nose if that's comfortable, through your mouth if that feels better. And again, a long inhale through your nose. Notice how that kind of makes you sit up a little taller. Try to keep that height as you exhale. And just see how effortless can you make it. Can you make it a long spine without the tension? Let's do one more breath here. Good. And blink your eyes open. And we're going to come off our block. You can put it up to the top of your mat, if you had one. And then you're going to come into tabletop position, so all fours. And you're going to check to see that your wrists are right under your shoulders and your knees are right under your hips. Good. And then you're going to inhale, look forward, and lift your sit bones up and drop your chest a little bit so you arch your back. And then as you exhale, press into the floor, keep the arms straight, and round your back, curl your tailbone in, curl your chin in. And then use your breath. Inhale, you're going to come forward with your gaze, lift the sit bones up. And then as you exhale, press into the tops of the feet and the hands, round your back, curl in. Let's do one more. Inhale, coming forward. This is one of those poses I feel like we should all do every day. And then exhale, round. Creating space between each vertebra. Come to your neutral spine, which just means the natural curves in your spine. And we're going to work on that balance pose we did, I think, in the first live class, or the first class. So you're going to step your right foot back and tuck the toes under. So this could be enough for some of you working on balance. You might just lift the toe up an inch or two. Some of you are going to really lift that leg up high using your inner thigh. So rotate your outer right thigh down. Nice carry. Good. And then kick through the inner heel there to get longer. So again, this could be a lot. It's asking you to balance here using your core to lift your belly, maintain those curves in the spine. Some of you are going to bring that left arm and reach it forward. So opposite arm and leg. So this pose really teaching us so much about proprioception, just our basic awareness of our body in time and space. It also teaches us a little something about our abs, our abdominal muscles. So lift that leg, the arm a little bit higher. And then exhale, set it all down. Nicely done. Left leg, step it back, tuck the toes under. Try to keep those toes facing that direction as you lift the leg up, so you keep the leg neutral. Good. Kick through the inner heel, make that leg nice and strong. And then if you did on the other side, reach that right arm forward. Notice if one side's a little easier or challenging. Find those ribs hugging towards one another and in towards your low back. Take one more breath. And exhale, set everything down. And then we're going to head towards downward facing dog. So you can keep the same alignment with your hands. Some of you might want to take the hands wider. If you noticed the other day it felt really difficult to be in downward facing dog, you can take your hands as wide as the mat, and you can even turn your hands open. So you want to explore a little bit which movement makes the most sense for you. And then tuck your toes under and just lift your knees an inch or two off the ground. So I know it's going to fire up the front of your body, but I want your knees bent. Press into the hands and send the chest towards your thighs and hips up and back. So you want to come into that more triangle shape rather than more of a plank shape here. So bending the knees will often allow us to get more length through the spine. And then once you're there, maybe you start to straighten one leg, lengthen through the back of that leg, through your heel, and then switch sides. Just pedal out the feet, but keep pressing through all four corners of the palm, the back of the knuckles. And remember, if it feels like too much, it is too much. So you can always pop your knees down. We're going to stay here just another breath or so. Maybe coming into stillness. And keep those knees bent. Keep lifting the sit bones up. And then as you're ready, bring your knees down. And let's take our knees wide for child's pose, big toes together. So here I did have a question also. The wider your knees are, the more accessible this pose becomes. So feel free to take them really wide. Try to bring your hips towards your heels. If they don't get there, that's okay. And then slowly bring your forehead to the mat. And if that's too much, you can stack your fists. You can put a block under your head. Anything to kind of prop up the front of your body. So wherever you are, breathe there. You might want to tuck your hands alongside your ankles and let your shoulders hang forward as well. A long inhale and a long exhale. You might notice after a breath or so, you might be able to just kind of scoot your forehead forward a touch and scoot your hips back a touch. So lengthening out across the spine. Okay, when you're ready, bring your hands underneath you to press yourself up to your shins. You can walk your knees in. And then we're going to bring our hands back underneath us, back to tabletop. And then same thing we did before, you're going to step your right foot back. And then we're going to head to plank pose. So you're going to keep your shoulders right over your wrists. And then you're going to lift your left knee up. Take one breath there. Exhale, right knee down, left knee down. Good. So your option is to always stay here. Just make sure your knees are back so you're no longer in tabletop here. Your knees a little further back. And then you're going to lift your right knee up and lift your left knee up. Plank pose. Gaze is still slightly forward. Notice if you're pitching back, shoulders are behind your wrist. Let them stack right over that wrist. Take one more breath there. Good. Pop the knees down. Let's head back to child's pose. So widen the knees. Big toes together, forehead to the mat. We're only going to stay here one breath. Good. And then as you're ready, come back up to your hands and your knees. And you can just actually come up onto your shins and step your right foot forward. So heading towards a low lunge. I think this is where you might want those blocks. And if you don't have blocks, you can have big books. I've actually heard of people using big soup cans, like those grande ones for pumpkin pie. So anything that can kind of prop you up here. And if you don't have anything, you can also stack your hands on your front thigh. Okay, so your choice. And this is where I had this blanket here too. I had a couple questions about knees and not being able to lunge. If it's just a little bit of pressure, you might be able to put a blanket under there, and that will suffice. No one likes this idea, but you can also push into the back of your foot and almost lift your knee up, but it takes a lot of effort. If nothing's working, you could do it on your back and just hug your knee in. Okay, so we're here. So we're going to shift our hips forward and allow the left hip flexors, which is the front of the thigh. I feel like this is the quintessential pose for riding, in that it's lengthening your iliopsoas, which is, I think, the only connection between your lumbar spine and your femur. So as a rider, you really want this long, supple line with your front thigh. And this is what allows us to get out of that position of sitting, where we shorten the set length of our iliopsoas a lot of times. This kind of does the opposite, opens us up. It's a big stretch. If you want to go a little further, you're going to inhale and bring your arms up towards the ceiling. So this is asking for more opening, of course. And you're going to notice, for me, as I sink further, I get into a little bit of a back bend here that I don't want. So I'm going to try to drop my tailbone down, lift my belly up, and you'll feel a lot more stretch. Can you ladies feel it? And then front hip flexor, right? So if you need to come out a little bit more, that's fine. We'd rather have the integrity of the pose. Big inhale. And exhale, we'll get out of there. So we're going to move our blocks. You can either have hands down and step back, or if it makes more sense for you, just step back upright. And you're going to bring your left foot forward. Same thing this side. So bring those blocks on either side, hands on the blocks. If your hands come easily down to the mat, that's fine too. But I will say I've become very good friends with props over the years. There's just nothing wrong with them. They're there to support us, and oftentimes we resist. But I invite you to find some prop friends. Okay, so inhale. If you're going further, you're going to bring those arms up with an inhale. And then again, if you notice you're getting more of this back bend than your neutral spine, you're going to try to drop the tailbone down, lift the belly up, and you're going to feel a lot more stretch in this front of the thigh. Take a huge inhale. See if you can soften your face. Notice if you're biting your lip. Good, and then hands come down. And we're going to bring both those knees together. And just the easiest way for you to get up to the top of the mat. So if you want to take one step and then another, you're going to head up there. And we're going to come all the way to stand. Only to go back down. But I'm going to stand this way so you guys can see me. We're going to do ragdoll pose, so a forward fold. And I just want to show it the wrong way first, because they won't do it the wrong way. But what I tend to see is flexion in the spine when we think of a forward fold. And that looks a little bit like this. But what we want to think about, and this is similar, come into more of a forward seat or a jumping position, what we want is you can bend your knees because that's going to make it more accessible. That the flexion is coming from your hip joint. So you can even put your hands there, and I want you to think of your back nice and lengthened with the natural curves, and see if you can slowly come all the way down. Hands might touch. You can be up high here. All these options are great. If you want, you can grab opposite elbows and head towards that full ragdoll. And you want your head and neck to just hang there. And you can really bend your knees. Sometimes I find that if I bend my knees so much that I can bring my belly towards my thighs, even if it looks like I'm sitting in a chair, that can be really nice because you just get that feeling. And sometimes it's just that our low back is hanging on to protect us. And we have to learn how to get those muscles to trust us a little bit and let go. And sometimes you can add a little movement, swaying side to side with your torso if that feels good. Long inhale and a long exhale. And to come back up, you're gonna bring your hands on the sides of your shins and then press into that area to straighten your arms and bring your chest forward. So again, we've got our neutral spine again, hands to your hips, safe way to come up. You're gonna keep everything the same and just come up from here. All right, so we're gonna now step wide on your mat. So yeah, maybe face each other. And take your feet really wide. If you had your arms out to the side, you want your ankles right under your wrists. So very wide. All your toes pointing forward for now and hands on your hips. Again, that low hip crease. Yep. And then we're going to start with the right side. So you're going to pick up your right toes and turn from your femur bone open and then set those toes down. You want to point straight ahead. There you go. Oh, you guys are being facing different ways. That's okay. That's all right. Yeah, okay, you do the opposite, Carolyn. Okay. And then pick up your back heel and just scoot it back a little, just so that the toes face forward, or if it helps, you can just scoot the toes forward. Good. And then bend in your right / for Carolyn, left knee. And I just want to point out one thing that often happens here is that sometimes if you make the stance too small, too short, and you bend, your knee's going to come in front of your ankle, and we don't want that. It's bad on the front of the knees. It's strenuous. So scoot that foot forward, get a little fierce with your warrior two, and sink in. Okay, then float your arms out to the sides. Good, and we're working to open our hips here in warrior two. So you're going to take, I'm going to adjust here, your outer right thigh, and like a corkscrew action, you're going to rotate it down and underneath you while keeping the toes pointing straight ahead. Yeah, so the knee is always in line with about the second or third toe as she bends in. And then she's going to resist that with her left thigh straight back. So here you're getting a big stretch and a lot of work through the inner and outer hips. So beautiful for riding because it starts to build our ability to be more isolated in our leg movements, better leg aids without moving the pelvis and other things happening in the body. Also feels really nice after riding. Okay, so now we're going to move a little with the breath because I know it's a lot. Inhale, straighten the front leg and reach your arms up towards the ceiling. That's it. But you can still face one another, so face sideways. That's it. And then exhale, bend into the front knee and sink back down. Beautiful. Inhale, straighten your front leg, reach up. One more, exhale, bend the knee, come down. I'm gonna add one more thing, stick with it if you can. Right elbow to right thigh and reach your left arm. Oh, sorry, Carolyn, for you, left elbow. to left thigh, yeah, opposite. And then reach your top arm up and over. Okay, so this is called side plank. Not a lot of weight in that bottom arm. Still opening across the chest, pressing into that back foot as much as you can. Good, and then we'll come out of it. So use your top arm to press yourself back up, straighten your front leg, turn both toes in, and we're gonna switch sides. So you guys will face me. So left for you, right, toes forward. Scoot your right heel back, and then bend into that left knee. So you want heel to heel alignment here. And again, notice if the knee is over the ankle or in front of it. If the knee's falling in, you're going to invite that left outer thigh to curl under you to open and resist right thigh back. Float your arms out to the sides. Inhale, exhale. And now we'll add that little movement. So we're going to inhale, straighten the front leg, reach up. Exhale, palms down, press the energy down. Inhale, come up. Exhale, come down. And one more time. Inhale, up. And it's like synchronized swimming down. Good. And then we'll add that side angle pose. So left elbow, left thigh. Reach the top arm up and over. And so you really want to keep the grounding in the back foot and press into that back leg straight as you can. Take one last breath here. Good. Then use that top arm to help you come back up. Straighten the front leg, turn the toes in. You can toe heel your feet in or do a little hop. Come up. Actually, we're going to do balance pose. So you guys can face me. We're going to do tree pose. So again, working on that proprioception, we're going to face forward. Bend your right knee. Open it up to the right. So you might stay here. You can have hands in namaste. You might start to bring that foot up a little higher. And notice as you try to open this thigh, a lot of times the hips come along for the ride. So try to keep them pointing straight ahead. Some of you might be able to reach down and bring that leg really high. And you can also come to a wall if balance is really challenging. Use that wall as your prop. And just be careful not to put the foot right at your knee because you don't want to put pressure there. If you're feeling pretty good, you might grow your branches up, spread your arms. And then just notice as the shoulders are up, can you drop the shoulder heads down? Soften your eyes, your jaw. If you wobble or fall, try to just give yourself a little smile rather than getting upset. Come right back into it. Again, we're just building that awareness of our body in time and space, hoping to bring that to the saddle and to our lives. And we also strengthen muscles that support this naturally so it becomes more effortless as we do it over time. Hands down, release that. You can shake it out if that feels good. And we'll switch sides. So turn that left foot out. Really take time to focus there. Another little trick for balance is looking down at the floor and finding one little wood grain or whatever you have in front of you to softly focus your eyes. And try to keep your eyes right there as you move. Maybe bringing the foot higher or not. Find your hip points facing dead ahead. And if you'd like to go further, the arms come up, spread. I often think that I have a little string tied to my sternum, and that's what's lifting me up here. Not the shoulders. Drop the shoulders down. Take a big inhale. And then hands come down first, and then leg. Shake it out. We'll come up to the top of our mat. We'll do a little half salutation to make our way back down. So we're going to inhale, reach your arms up. And then exhale, you're going to fold forward. Remember that long spine. Bend your knees if you need to. Come all the way down. You can also separate the feet a little more. Forward fold. Hands on your outer shins. Straighten your arms. Come halfway up. Again, here you can have the knees bent. And then bend your knees so much that you can plant your palms. Step back to that plank pose. Lower your knees down. And then come all the way down onto your belly. Okay, this is called bow pose or Shalabhasana. So you untuck your toes, so the tops of your feet are down, and you're going to have your palms face up alongside you. I'm lifting myself up a little just so the mic doesn't get crushed, but ideally you have your forehead on the ground, long back of the neck. And then as you inhale, you're going to lift your shoulders away from the mat, and keep your arms straight and lift your arms away from the mat, lift your chest and lift your legs. If you can, you're going to try to get those thighs off the ground. So what tends to happen is that we kind of, the outer thighs do a lot of the work. So Carolyn especially, think of those inner thighs lifting up more. Yes. And then think of getting longer through the inseam of your jeans. Carry you to these inner thighs more. That's it. And for some reason, this is incredibly hard and it doesn't look like it. But lift your arms, lift your legs a little bit higher, and then tuck your chin. Get the back of the neck long. Take a huge breath. Exhale, let it go. Right ear on the mat. And completely relax. Let your shoulders hang down. So as much as we effort and work there, we take this time to relax and let go. Breathe into that low back. Feel that softening. We're going to do it one more time. When you're ready, set yourself back up into center, either chin or forehead on the mat. And then on an inhale, start to lift everything up, shoulders up, arms up. And then with those legs, think inner thighs doing the lifting. And then get longer through the legs. Lift a little bit higher, especially if you sit a lot. This pose is the antidote. It's really working the whole back of the body, strengthening. And eventually it brings your shoulders, if you slump a lot, like I do, brings your shoulders back towards the center without using too much muscle control over time. Okay, I'm talking too much. Big inhale, exhale, let it go. Left ear on the mat. And take those moments to relax. You might even just shift your hips a little side to side, feel that release in the low back. And then gather your hands underneath your shoulders and just press yourself all the way up to hands and knees. And we're going to take one brief child's pose again. So take those knees wide, big toes touch, all the way back the opposite direction, hips to heels, forehead to the mat. Be very ginger in that transition. Take a long inhale and a long exhale. Go ahead and walk yourself up to your shins. Kick your feet around. And we're going to come all the way down onto our back. Yay! So slow as you can, come down. You didn't get off that easy. Try to work as slow as you can, curling down the back, all the way down. And we're going to take thread the needle pose, so a little hip opener for the outer hip that we were working earlier. So you're going to bring your right ankle, cross it over, and put it on your left thigh. That's it. Flex that right foot just to protect the knee, and then sit up and look between your legs. And you're going to take your right hand in that little triangle between your legs, and your left arm on the outside of your thigh. Yep, and either grab your hamstring, so the back of your thigh, and then set your head, neck, and shoulders back down. Some of you might be able to grab the shin easily, but if it means that you're using a lot of effort and your shoulders can't relax down on the floor, then just work on the hamstring today. Okay, and then once we're here, same idea. You want to try to roll the outer right thigh away from you towards me for the ladies in class. And as you do that, hug your left knee into your chest. That's it. So you should feel a pretty good stretch on the outer hip, which is a great antidote to riding. After you ride, before you ride, just kind of releasing the tension in the hips. And seeing if you can stay really relaxed in the face, the jaw, the places in your body you don't have to work. One more breath there. Good. And release that leg. Set your right foot down, and we'll switch sides. So bring your left ankle on top of the right thigh. Take the left knee away from you. Sit up so you can find either the shin or the hamstring. And then set your head, neck, and shoulders back down. And then again, start to draw the left outer thigh away from you, pulling the knee away from your chest, left knee, and then hug the right knee into the chest. Try to use your bicep muscles there, keeping the shoulders relaxed. And you might even explore sometimes even a tiny difference, like pulling your knee in more towards the outside of your right shoulder. You'll feel a different stretch versus pulling the knee in more towards the center of your chest. So no, one's not right or wrong, just a little bit different stretch. You might need it today. Relax your face. Take a long inhale and a long exhale. And then release that side. We're going to take one final squeeze here. So we're going to sit up, make ourselves a tight little ball. You might grab opposite elbows or just grab your shins and hug your forehead towards your knees. Give yourself a big squeeze. And then we're going to set up for final Savasana. Yay! So traditionally, the legs are straight, toes fall open, palms face up alongside you. For some people, this isn't comfortable in the low back area. So you might bend your knees, take your feet as wide as your mat and let the knees knock in. Or a bolster handy, you want to put it under the back of your knees rather than under your back. This is a better way to lengthen your low back. And then you're going to close your eyes. Take a moment to really set up for total rest. So you might even pick up your shoulders and kind of walk the shoulder blades down the back. Then sometimes you have to, it's like the Princess and the Peas. Pick up your hips, lengthen your tailbone forward. Make sure nothing's touching you. Move any props up. Take a big inhale. And then you might just sigh it out. And then really give yourself these last few minutes to completely relax. Oftentimes we're more inclined to do the work and put in the effort to do something, but we often don't put in the effort to not do anything. So give yourself this time. And start to relax the tiny muscles around your eyes, your forehead. Just feeling the weight of the skin across the cheeks. And you might just lick the inside of your mouth or your lips or wiggle your jaw a little. And let the tongue settle into the bottom of the palate. Just notice how heavy you feel, maybe around the pelvic area, back of the arms, the legs, parts of you touching the mat. Give in to those areas, give in to gravity. Let the belly go. We'll lie here together for a couple minutes, and I'll let you know when it's time to start moving again. And then you'll slowly come back. You might wiggle your fingers and your toes. If you're not ready to get up, you can stay here a little bit longer. If you're ready to move on, you might bring your feet, soles of the feet onto the ground, bending the knees. Maybe reaching the arms overhead and giving yourself a nice stretch. And we'll roll off to our right side. And you might use your right arm as a little pillow there. Try to stay as relaxed as you can. Might keep your eyes closed. Take a couple breaths there. And then as you're ready, use your hands to press yourself up to any comfortable seat to close this class. Bring your hands to your heart center, close your eyes. And just take a moment to settle back in. Notice how you feel. Your body, mind. And then thank yourself for taking this time out of your day to look inwards, dedicate some time to yourself. And thank you so much for joining us. Namaste. And thank you, Carrie and Carolyn. And now I think Callie's going to come up and kind of go over more of the logistics of the full class.
Yes, yeah. So I hope that everyone really enjoyed that class. That was an excellent class. I'm going to come sit next to you to start because if I'm close to your bike, they can hear us better.
Oh, yeah.
So first
Do you want me to give it to you?
No, actually,
Okay.
it'll pick me up if I'm close. It's just if I go too far away. So I want to start with some of the questions, and I was recording your questions that came in here. So we had a few come in about knees, either patella issues, even current injuries where they're not able to really bear a lot of weight, like in a kneeling position. What do you recommend for modifying for that?
Well, first, always checking with your doctor first and see what is best, especially if it's like a weight-bearing issue or a knee replacement. I know also for knee replacements, this position is quite uncomfortable, especially if the hips are tight. So one thing is just to get the weight off the knees. So I'm going to demo really quick. But for the lunge, for example, I mentioned it. You can stay there. You could basically do it on your back. So essentially, you come onto your back. You might want to use your hand to kind of help. But essentially, you're in a lunge in your back. You're still going to get the opening through the front of the thigh. And you might want to work there for a while. You can try to prop up the other leg so that there's no weight on the patella, the knee cap itself. But even that sometimes is too much pressure. So there's always a great deal of sort of trial and error and coming at it from an exploratory place. So you have to see what works best for your body. Don't push it. For the cross-legged ones, sitting in a chair is a great thing. You just have a chair next to your, and actually for a lunge, chair is great too. So if you do a high lunge, then your back knee's off the ground. So you're taking the weight off in this way too. You're getting a lot of the stretch. So that's one option there. If it's too much though, because you're going too far, too fast, you put a chair under here. So the seat of the chair would essentially be under your front leg. So it takes a lot of this weight in case it's both knees. And then you're still getting the opening here through this side. So you essentially can sit in your chair and then take one leg back and then you sit in the chair the other way and do it the other way. So that's another way to still get the opening through the front of the thigh. And for these kind of cross-legged ones, a lot of times you got to get yourself up higher. So the rule of thumb is hips above knees, or at least in line, because if your knees are higher, you're putting a lot of pressure on the knees just because they're holding on essentially the weight of the legs. So propping yourself up can help. Not doing it at all. These can be difficult for a lot of people. You can stack yourself all the way up. If it's still too much, it's just too much. So you're going to sit in the chair. And the other thing you can do cross-legged is find something to put under your knees so that, and you do both even, so that they're not holding that weight up. It actually feels really nice. It's good for people without knee injuries too. So those would be my basics. Of course, it's always, very individual too. So those are the kind of things that if you sent me a specific person with a specific body and their doctor's recommendations, I could give you a specific thing to work on. But a lot of these practices are great for kind of helping your knee heal as well.
It's actually one of the, there's pros and cons to doing yoga classes live with a teacher versus doing it in an online format, which is what we put together in Yoga for Riders. But I think one of the nice things about doing it at home is you can pause the video, set yourself up, go into the exercise, and that's nice. And you don't have to feel worried that you're in a class or holding people up with questions, or as you take time to modify.
Yeah, thank you. I meant to mention that is that in the recorded sessions, and this one I think is going to be available later as well. Taking the time to pause and really watch and go back and redoing it is a nice thing to do. And oftentimes in a big class, teachers can't get around and hear everybody's story and what injuries they're dealing with, so they can't give you a very specific modification, but something we can do on a more of an individual basis.
We had another question come in here. This one was from Carol, and I know that we've had some others that have brought this up too, is having trouble in anything that's inversion, or even sometimes with going up and down with feeling some nausea.
Yes. One thing is just making sure you're really consciously breathing. Sometimes when we're trying new things or in a different position, we hold our breath. So just something to look out for, that you're really taking those long breaths, and especially exhaling all the breath out so that you can get a full breath in. So that's one thing to just note. Also, moving really slow, having your feet further apart, not spending so much time with your head lower than your heart. So some people, just that much of an inversion, like child's pose, I think someone commented on, was too much for them. Because if your hips are high and your heart ends up being low, it's a lot of blood kind of heading towards your head. So that's where you might want to take something and prop up the front of you just to keep that incline, so that you work slow, basically, and mindfully. So if you're starting to get a little nauseous or dizzy, then really slowing everything down and trying to keep your head a little bit higher than your heart, at least in these beginning stages, is your body just has to get used to what you're asking of it.
Yeah. Very good. Well, thank you so much for doing this class for everyone. For those of you that tuned in, I'll tell you a little bit more about Yoga for Riders, because we're going to be opening that up. But first, I'm curious if maybe we even just went around. What are some of the biggest differences that you've seen personally in your riding through yoga?
Well, my whole life has changed. I mean, on a personal level, but in my actual riding, just awareness in general, I feel like, in what I'm asking, how I'm asking it, like with what muscle group I'm asking it, and trying to isolate that. And on more of a mental level, just I tend to get frustrated. Things are going my way, and yoga has helped me a lot in just slowing down, and when things are getting like that, just getting off, or breathing, and so kind of in general, those are two of the main things I've noticed.
Yeah. What are some things that you've noticed, Carrie and Carolyn?
I think the number one thing for me is, well, very similar, isolating those body parts, having that awareness of how my body is moving in space, and also sidedness. So I did have a little question for you, because I noticed that when we were doing the thread the needle pose, I was really having some stiffness on my left side, not as flexible on that side. Do you want to do more, or do you just continue kind of doing the same on both sides to bring that to neutral, or
to balance it out?
Yeah, to balance it out, essentially.
Well, I would say it depends, which I say about most everything. But in your case, if it's just like a muscle that you feel like, a lot of times on a dominant side, like if your left leg is your dominant side, it's going to hold more tension and do more work in our day-to-day life. So I would say to spend more time when you're stretching on that side, and at the same time, more time strengthening your other leg, and just being more aware of how much you're using one side more than the other. I'm the same way. Most people have one side that's dominant, especially in riding. I notice it in my legs, flexibility-wise and strength-wise. So Yeah, but awareness, before you can change anything, you have to be aware of it. So that's why I think that awareness is such a key piece.
I tend to hold a lot of tension in my muscles, and that is not good for riding. And yoga has helped me learn how to relax, but also be strong at the same time, and to put the strength where it's needed in the legs and let the shoulders relax and those kinds of things. So that's been a huge benefit.
Good. Yeah, I think for myself, it's been probably going through some old injuries that left me more asymmetrical than I was even aware of, but then I would notice it in riding, and I was just trying to like fight through it. But yoga brought that combination of strength and mobility and awareness that really made a difference once, when I started doing yoga much more consistently. Good. So let's go a little bit closer, just so I made some beautiful artwork that I'm going to be sharing with you so that they can see it. So I wanted to just tell you a little bit about what's going to be in the Yoga for Riders class. And there's a link that we'll put in the comments for you, and I'll also be sending out an email if you've been going through the free classes so that you can see those. But one of the big things that I think is so important for starting a new practice is the consistency and actually being there consistently to do it, to see the results. So we designed a yogi journey map that is a really fun way to go through following the course program and be able to just check off each time that you did each of the classes that is included. So Yoga for Riders is a 4-week program, and in each of the weeks, each week has a focus, and it has a few of the main components. Can you talk a little bit about how you kind of designed the focus for each of the 4 sections?
Sure. So for each week, we kind of follow the chakra system, which is chakras basically means wheel or an energy center. And they generally start at your root chakra and then go up to the crown of your head. And each one is associated with different like symbolism, physical body parts, but also bigger themes. So I kind of tie that all together. For example, today's class was more of a first, second chakra class because it was a lot of in our hips and our lower body, grounding, but also opening our hips. So for example, like grounding and acceptance. And so I don't often talk about all those ideas, but I always am incorporating them. And then each class as well follows a movement principle, which are these ideas of moving 2 different groups of muscles in your body to keep them in balance. So some of the stuff we did with postural awareness, moving the front body to the back body and vice versa, follows that idea. So it kind of follows the whole theme, and then in the end is the crown chakra, all is coming, kind of putting all the pieces together.
Yeah. And one of the cornerstones of that is the 30-minute asana classes, which would be similar to what you just went through. And Carrie and Caroline, you two are free to hang out on your mats, or if you would like to go grab a drink after that class, it's always the live video when we have multiple people. Sometimes when you're the props, you don't know what to do next. So feel free to do whatever you would like. The other piece that is included in each week is a 15-minute restorative class. And what's the difference between restorative yoga and
what we just did?
Yes.
So we just did more of a vinyasa, it's called class, which matches movement to breath, and is more of a physically challenging and strengthening, I would say, class. Restoratives are meant to be passive. And so we use a lot of blankets and pillows that you have around the house and support yourself in different positions that are opening or relaxing. And then you basically just get to lay there and I talk you through some relaxation things, some breath work. And that is really more geared at stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system. So that calming versus fight or flight, which is the sympathetic. So it's kind of another way of balancing out a more active class within a more calming and passive class.
And then the other piece of the each week of the program is the 10-minute meditation series. And I've appreciated the way that you look at and guide meditation, both from the classes that I've done with you, but also when we filmed this series. Because if you haven't meditated before, and it sounds either intimidating or sounds maybe a little bit more woo-woo than what you would normally think of doing, I think you're really going to enjoy Heidi's meditation classes.
Yeah, I would say that most people, when they approach meditation, sometimes people go at it like, just sit down and stop thinking. And that's never going to happen. I mean, our mind is made to think. It helps us navigate the world. We have histories and everything going on in our mind. It's going to come up. So I find that using guided meditation is a much easier way to start, be it through sound or breath or a thought. I'll kind of talk through and keep bringing you back in case the mind takes you away from the moment. So, and it's always with, anybody who's taught me meditation has always said that you have to have a sense of humor about it because we do have these monkey minds and, we're using our mind all the time, trying to sharpen it. So it's hard to then, ask it to go the other way. So you need the tools and you need to be patient with yourself and have a sense of humor about it.
Yes. And then what's also included in each week is the horse homework. And this is something that I put together for you. So we created these at my farm at home in Pennsylvania. And these are exercises that you can do to help bring some of the key themes, both the physical movements and also some of those more kind of mental or the energetic themes of the week to your riding. And these are just super simple, a few exercises that you can focus on that week as you're riding to help it tie all of what you're doing in the yoga classes to your riding time as well. And then at the end of each week, we also have a few little journal prompts that help you to kind of reflect on how the classes went for you, how you're feeling, and how you're thinking about going into the next week. And then you can track all of that on what I mentioned earlier, is just this simple little map to help keep you consistent. And we have a really fun group here at CRT Training, an amazing community that is going to be going together through the class. So you'll also have that community that you'll see each other checking in and see each other there in the comments as you're in doing the videos. And Heidi will be available for helping with some of those modifications and questions.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I love seeing everybody's intros on the Facebook page as well and meeting your horses. And
Yes. Yeah, so we are going to be starting very soon with Yoga for Riders. So we're going to be open for enrollment now through February 28th. So for the next 5 days, you can join us, read all about the program on the link. I'll be sending out an email.
Wait, January 28th?
Did I say February? I'm already so far ahead. February 28th. Thank you.
I was like, wait, February?
So take a read on that. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We also have some special bonuses that are included, including one that is going to be similar to what you just saw, but is going to be tailored for you. So for the first students that join, you'll have the opportunity to send in a question that you're having, something that you want to focus on, and then Heidi's going to be putting together a class to really help with those specific challenges or focus areas. So that'll be available if you know you want to jump in and join us. Those that join the first day will put that class together. So any questions, let us know. I hope you can join us. I'd love to see you in Yoga for Riders.
Thanks so much.